It happened so fast. One moment, the laughter of children filled the air, the spring sun casting long golden shadows on the grass, and the next I was screaming her name at the top of my lungs, helplessly watching her wheelchair gain speed down the steep hill. My legs froze, my throat tightened, and in that endless second, the world slowed to a crawl. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't save her. Her tiny hands were gripping the armrests so tight, her knuckles turned white, her face twisted in sheer terror. "Mom," she shrieked. The sound still echoes in my head. She bounced once, then again. The third time, her body lurched forward. Her wheelchair twisted sideways, metal scraping against gravel. There was a sickening thud, a sharp crack, then silence. Her body lay twisted at the base of the hill, motionless, a smear of red beside her cheek. I ran. I didn't breathe. I didn't think. My knees scraped against the dirt as I collapsed beside her, tears already falling as I cradled her trembling frame. Her lip was split, her elbow gashed open, her eyes unfocused. But the fear on her face was deeper than any wound. That wasn't an accident. She knew. Somehow she knew. And so did I. She pushed me, my daughter whispered. People gathered slowly, awkwardly. The ones who had watched from the top, silent, pretending they didn't see. And Karen? She just stood there, arms folded, sunglasses on, cold, still, like she was waiting for applause. I remember her voice, sharp, casual, detached. She must have let go of the brakes. But that was the thing. There were no brakes left to hold. Days later, a neighbor would show me a piece of footage from his porch cam, Karen kneeling by the wheelchair earlier that morning, a pair of garden shears in her hand, snipping something, looking over her shoulder, smiling. So, let me ask you this. What kind of person do you have to be to look at a disabled child and see a threat to your neighborhood? What level of hatred does it take to see a little girl with a smile and a wheelchair and decide she doesn't belong? This wasn't just a freak accident. It wasn't poor judgment. It was a plan. Karen had made her feelings clear from the start. The ramps were ugly. The sound of the motorized chair disrupted the peace. Our flowers in front of the house were non-compliant. The sidewalk chalk my daughter loved? Graffiti. But we never imagined she'd take it this far. We thought we could endure the passive aggression, the HOA complaints, the whispering neighbors. We thought being kind, respectful, and quiet would be enough to earn space in this community. We were wrong. That hill wasn't an accident. That missing brake line wasn't an accident. That push, that was deliberate, calculated, evil. And she knew it. She knew my daughter couldn't stop herself. She knew she'd roll, fast and hard, unable to slow down. She knew she could act shocked after, and maybe even get away with it. But she forgot one thing: I'm her mother. And I'll burn down every wall, file every motion, fight every corrupt HOA rule and cowardly neighbor until my child's voice is heard, and until Karen finally answers for what she did. So, if you think this is just another story about a mean neighbor, think again. This is about how far one woman went to protect her precious neighborhood image, and how far a mother will go to protect her child. And it all started with a smile and a pair of garden shears. Before all of this, before the hill, the screams, and the blood, there was just me and Lily, a mother and daughter trying to build a quiet life in a sleepy little HOA-run suburb where the lawns were neat, the neighbors polite, and the rules endless. Lily was born early. Too early. The doctors said she wouldn't walk, maybe not even sit up on her own. Her spine never developed the way it was supposed to. They called it spina bifida. But I never let that word define her. Because from the moment she opened her eyes, Lily fought for joy. She smiled more than any child I've ever known. And despite every needle, every surgery, every brace, every cast, she laughed. She found wonder in things I'd forgotten how to appreciate. Wind chimes, ladybugs, the shape of clouds. We moved into Woodpine Grove when Lily was 5. It was supposed to be a fresh start after her father walked out. A new chapter, a safer neighborhood with quiet streets and decent schools, the kind of place with welcome signs and 4th of July parades. The kind of place where you think you'll be okay. I saved for years to afford that house. And when we moved in, I built Lily a custom ramp for the front porch, painted her room lilac, and gave her the biggest window in the house so she could watch the birds in the mornings. She loved it. She called it our forever fort. We planted tulips in the yard together. I let her pick every color, purple and yellow, just like her drawings. Our mornings were peaceful. I'd make her pancakes while she practiced wheeling herself in small circles. She hated depending on me. She said, "I want my arms strong, Mommy, like yours." Every night, I'd read her stories about explorers and astronauts. She'd always say, "When I grow up, I'm going to fly too." And in her own way, she already was. But the neighborhood wasn't ready for us. It started small. A folded note on our porch. Ramp doesn't match neighborhood aesthetic. Please repaint to HOA compliant gray. Then came the citations. Unauthorized structural modification. Front garden exceeds width allowance. Wheelchair ramp obstructs sidewalk view. I thought it was just red tape. I was wrong. The first time I met Karen, she introduced herself not as a neighbor, but as the president of the HOA. A woman in her late 50s, sharp bob haircut, clipboard in hand, smile like a blade. "We keep Woodpine Grove clean and compliant," she told me, not even making eye contact. "We don't like clutter, noise, or eyesores." She paused at the ramp. I said, "It's for my daughter." She replied, "I figured. I just hope you're not expecting exceptions." That was Karen. To the rest of the neighborhood, she was involved. To us, she was a shadow, a constant presence. She walked past our house every day at the same time, eyes scanning, lips pursed. We got fined for chalk drawings on the sidewalk, for having wind chimes on the porch. Once, she left a note in my mailbox about the unpleasant sound of the wheelchair wheels on concrete. Lily started to notice. One day, she said, "Why doesn't the lady like me?" I said, "She just doesn't know you yet." But in my heart, I knew. Karen didn't want to know her. She didn't want Lily there at all. At HOA meetings, she'd say things like, "Children playing outside should be monitored to prevent neighborhood disturbances," or "Medical equipment left outside is a liability." She once proposed that ramps, if not built by a licensed contractor, should be removed for safety. She never used Lily's name. Just that house. Still, I tried to be civil. I invited her for coffee. She declined. I offered to repaint the ramp. She said it wouldn't make a difference. She even lodged a formal complaint when Lily's nurse parked too long in front of the mailbox. It was clear she was going to push until we either bent to her rules or broke. But Lily wouldn't break. One day, after another round of letters and fines, she looked up at me and said, "Mommy, don't let her take away my smile, okay?" I promised I wouldn't. And through it all, Lily kept being Lily. She painted her wheels with rainbow stickers. She made friends with the mailman. She gave out hand-drawn cards to neighbors who walked their dogs. She found sunshine where most people saw gray. And maybe that's what Karen hated most. That Lily didn't fit inside her perfectly trimmed world. That we didn't blend in, that we smiled too much, made too much joy, existed too loudly. But I didn't think she'd ever go beyond words and warnings. I never imagined she'd touch Lily's wheelchair, sabotage it, use it as a weapon against her. I underestimated how deep her hatred went. That bond between me and Lily, it was everything. I carried her through surgeries. She carried me through heartbreak. And if Karen thought she could break us by cutting a few wires, she had no idea who she was dealing with. Because the day Karen decided to hurt my daughter was the day I stopped being afraid of her. It didn't take long after the incident with the chalk drawings for things to escalate. At first, I told myself it was just bureaucracy, some bitter woman with too much time and a power title. But then the notices started coming every week. Violation: excessive garden growth outside fence line. Violation: non-HOA approved exterior paint color on ramp. Violation: unauthorized medical device storage in public view wheelchair. Each letter came in a crisp white envelope with the HOA seal stamped in the corner like a badge of mock authority. Each one had that same chilling phrasing. Failure to comply may result in fines and further action. What action? I didn't know. But the more I fought back, the more it felt like a game, only we weren't the ones playing. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was targeting us. At first, I still believed it could be reasoned with. I attended the next HOA meeting, clutching Lily's latest medical exemption forms and ADA compliance regulations. I even baked muffins, trying to show up as a neighbor, not an adversary. Karen didn't even look at the forms. She tapped her pen against her clipboard and said, "We're all very sympathetic to your situation, but sympathy doesn't exempt anyone from maintaining neighborhood standards." I said, "This isn't about sympathy. It's about legality. My daughter's wheelchair is not a violation." Her smile thinned like a slit in fabric. "That's your opinion." A few heads turned in the room, but no one spoke up. Not the woman who waved to me every morning while walking her dog. Not the retired couple across the street who once dropped off soup when Lily had the flu. They all sat in silence, eyes on their phones, pretending they didn't hear. After that, it got worse. Anonymous letters started showing up in our mailbox. No envelope, just torn notebook paper. "You don't belong here. Take your broken kid and go. The ramp looks like a loading dock. This isn't a hospital." Lily found one before I could. She didn't cry. She just stared at the words for a long time. Then she folded it and handed it to me without a sound. That night, she didn't ask for a bedtime story. I went to the HOA board again. Karen said there was no proof the notes came from anyone in the neighborhood and accused me of creating drama. When I demanded they investigate, she shrugged. "Maybe you should consider whether this community is really a good fit for your family." That was her answer to everything. Leave, disappear, be someone else's problem. But we wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Lily tried to make peace in her own innocent way. She drew a picture of the neighborhood and wrote a message in rainbow-colored marker. "We're all neighbors, so let's be kind." I helped her print a few copies, and she asked if we could tape them to mailboxes. We spent a Sunday afternoon doing just that. I watched her beam with pride as she wheeled down the sidewalk, her small hands carefully smoothing the tape on each post. It was her version of extending an olive branch. The next morning, every single drawing was gone. Torn, trashed, some stuffed inside our mailbox with red markers scrawled across them. HOA prohibits solicitation. The message was clear. Our kindness wasn't wanted, and someone, likely Karen, wanted us humiliated for offering it. A few days later, I noticed something strange. The security camera we had mounted near the front door, gone. Just gone. The screws were still in place, but the device had vanished. I checked the footage from our indoor backup. Nothing. Either someone had disabled it before approaching, or it was taken in the middle of the night. I reported it to the police. They took a statement, said they'd file it, but with no footage, no fingerprints, there wasn't much they could do. That week, Lily's wheelchair started acting strange. On one outing, she said it felt like it was pulling left. I thought maybe one of the wheels had a loose bearing. I scheduled a repair appointment. The technician called me later that day with a tone that made my stomach drop. "Ma'am, were you aware the left brake cable was almost completely frayed? It looked like someone took wire cutters to it. It was a clean snip." My hands went cold. He continued, "Had she been going downhill or picking up speed, she would have had no way to stop. This could have been catastrophic." I couldn't breathe. I checked the garage door. No signs of break-in. But then again, Karen lived just across the street. It wouldn't take much to sneak in, snip a wire, and leave. We had left the garage door open one afternoon when unloading groceries. She could have seen the chair unattended, unguarded. My gut screamed that she was planning something. I began watching Karen more closely. She always walked by at the same time, always glancing, never smiling. One afternoon, I saw her bending down by our garden. When I called out, she stood abruptly and walked away. I later found broken glass sprinkled near the edge of the ramp. It blended with the gravel. If Lily had wheeled over it barefoot, like she often liked to do in the evenings, it would have shredded her skin. We started locking everything, setting up indoor cameras, changing our routines. I began documenting every strange event, dates, photos, letters, reports. Part of me didn't want to believe it was all real, that someone could carry this much malice toward a child. But Lily knew. One evening, as I tucked her in, she asked, "Mommy, if something happens to me, will you still stay here?" My heart broke. Nothing is going to happen to you. But if it does, I'll burn this whole neighborhood to the ground if it tries to hurt you. She smiled weakly. Good. It wasn't just about chalk drawings or flower beds anymore. It was psychological warfare. Karen had made it clear she wouldn't stop until we were gone. She had the power of the HOA, the silence of the neighbors, and the coldness to cross every moral line imaginable. And I had the sinking feeling she was getting bolder. I didn't know when or how, but I knew one thing: she was planning something, and the next time, she wouldn't just take away a drawing or a security camera. She would try to take something far more precious. And I had to be ready. It was supposed to be a beautiful day. The Woodpine Grove annual spring picnic was the one day the whole neighborhood came together. Face painting, bouncy castles, homemade pies lined up under white tents. There were barbecues smoking in driveways, laughter echoing through cul-de-sacs, and children chasing bubbles across the park lawn. Even the HOA, usually so rigid, went all out. It was a community-building day, a performative kindness wrapped in paper plates and lemonade. Lily had been looking forward to it all week. She'd made a glitter poster for the bake sale table and even helped me bake her favorite lemon muffins the night before. It was the first time in months I saw her excited about something outside our home. She wore her favorite pink sun hat, the one with daisies stitched into the brim, and a shirt that read, "I roll with it." That morning, I remember brushing her hair and watching her hum softly as she looked out the window. "I hope Miss Karen is nice today," she said. I didn't answer. I just smiled and adjusted her hat. I didn't want to ruin her mood, not today. When we arrived, I kept her close. My eyes scanned the crowd automatically like a second set of lungs, alert, tight, always prepared to hold their breath. Karen was near the punch table, dressed in crisp white pants and a lemon blouse, laughing with a group of board members like nothing in the world could touch her. We stayed on the opposite end of the park. Lily played ring toss, won a stuffed animal, and colored hearts on the pavement with sidewalk chalk. For a moment, I let myself relax. Maybe, just maybe, we could have one peaceful day. Just one. Then Karen approached. Her voice cut through the crowd like the edge of a blade. "Oh, Lily, you look adorable today. Would you like me to push you up the hill for a photo? The view's just lovely from the top." Lily turned to me, her eyes searching mine. I hesitated. My instinct screamed. But then, I hesitated again. There were people everywhere. Parents, kids, volunteers. What could she possibly do in front of an entire community? And besides, what kind of mother would I look like if I made a scene? If I said no and made everyone uncomfortable, that's how they win. They make you question your own gut. So I nodded slowly. "Just for a picture. Stay close." Karen smiled wider than I'd ever seen. "Of course." She placed her hands gently on the back of Lily's wheelchair and began walking toward the hill, the one at the far end of the park, just beyond the rose garden and picnic benches. It wasn't steep enough to seem dangerous at first glance, but steep enough that a child with no brakes could build up terrifying speed. I followed from a few steps behind, watching every move. Karen chatted casually with Lily, pointing at the trees, the flowers. A couple of neighbors watched. One of them, Mr. Jensen, gave a tight nod my way. I nodded back, trying to look calm, trying to keep my feet moving when every fiber of my body wanted to run. Halfway up the hill, Karen paused. "Here's perfect," she said. "Say cheese." She pulled out her phone. Lily beamed, hands in her lap. I stood to the side, adjusting the angle for a better shot. Just one quick photo. I turned away for a single second. That's all it took. 1 second. And then the scream. A sound no parent should ever have to hear. High-pitched, pure terror. It ripped the sky in half. I spun around and my heart stopped. Lily's wheelchair was rolling down the hill fast. No hands on the wheels. No control. Her body tilted back, trying desperately to stop herself. Her small voice cried out, "Mommy, Mommy," over and over. But there was no slowing her. No brakes. No Karen. She wasn't running after her. She was standing still, watching. The crowd gasped. A few parents screamed. Someone shouted for help. I ran, tripping, stumbling, knees slamming into the ground. Lily? I cried, breath tearing out of me. She hit the bottom of the hill hard. The chair bounced once, then again, then twisted and flipped, throwing her sideways into the base of an oak tree. The crash was sickening. A metallic snap. A human thud. By the time I reached her, she was crumpled beside the roots, blood trickling from her forehead, her arm bent at an angle no child's arm should ever bend. Her sun hat had flown off. Her shirt was torn. Her lip was split open. She was crying, but alive. I collapsed beside her, hands trembling, trying to keep her still. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. I've got you." Her voice came in ragged sobs. I couldn't stop. I tried. There were no brakes. I looked up, eyes blazing. Karen was walking down the hill slowly now, phone still in hand, voice sickeningly calm. Oh my God, that was... She must have rolled by herself. The hill is steep. Maybe she let go too soon. She was performing. Her face contorted into mock concern, her hand dramatically placed on her chest. The neighbors watched, murmuring. Some bought it. Others looked away. But then one voice cut through. "Wait, I think I got something on my doorbell cam," Mr. Jensen said, walking briskly toward us. "From earlier today. She was at your garage." "What?" I asked, still clutching Lily. "Just before the picnic started. I thought she was just dropping off a flyer, but she bent down by the side of your garage. She had something in her hand. I didn't think anything of it. But now," he trailed off, eyes narrowing at Karen. Karen paled. Paramedics arrived. They wheeled Lily off on a stretcher while I rode beside her, my hand never leaving hers. At the hospital, they treated a fractured arm, several bruised ribs, a mild concussion, and a deep gash on her forehead. The doctor told me if she had rolled just a few feet further, the impact could have snapped her neck. She had no brakes. None. The technician from the repair shop confirmed it. The cables had been cleanly severed. Not worn. Not damaged from use. Cut. Intentionally. And the footage from Mr. Jensen's doorbell camera? Crystal clear. It showed Karen approaching our garage with gardening gloves and a pair of clippers, bending down near the side, looking around, then walking away calmly, holding the broken brake line in her hand like a prize. She didn't push Lily. She didn't have to. She cut the brakes and waited. Waited for a moment of trust, of distraction. Waited for the perfect opportunity to let go. And when it came, she seized it. But this time she was caught. And she was going to pay. Because the truth was out, and so was the footage. Justice is supposed to be blind, but I learned quickly that in quiet suburbs like Woodpine Grove, it often wears designer glasses and plays tennis with the HOA board. The morning after the incident, I stood at the police station with my daughter's blood-stained shirt in one hand and a USB of security footage in the other, expecting that the truth would speak for itself. It didn't. The officer behind the desk offered a polite smile and a clipped tone. "We'll open a file and begin reviewing evidence," he said. "But these things take time, especially with a known community member like Mrs. Kessler involved." Karen, Mrs. Kessler. Of course, they knew her. She donated to the annual police fundraiser, organized the neighborhood safety patrol, took selfies with officers at HOA events. To them, she wasn't a suspect, she was a sponsor. Still, I pushed. I laid out everything. The mechanic's report confirming the brakes were cleanly severed, not worn. The photo of the exact clippers found in her gardening shed. The video footage of her bending over beside our garage, glancing over her shoulder, crouching suspiciously, and walking away with something tucked inside her pocket. The officer nodded slowly. "We'll have to verify timestamps and ensure the footage hasn't been manipulated. In the meantime, please avoid public accusations. It could affect the investigation." Avoid accusations? My daughter could have died and they wanted caution? That's when I realized if I didn't fight for justice, no one else would. So I got to work. Every late night after Lily went to bed with her arm in a cast and nightmares in her eyes, I sat in our living room with a folder full of every HOA notice we'd ever received. I cross-referenced the timestamps of the violations with the times Karen was seen outside her home. I gathered letters, the anonymous threats, the chalk graffiti citation, the garden complaint where someone had scattered broken glass. I printed every email, every complaint report, every photo. But the real breakthrough came from someone I never expected. Dina, a shy high schooler who lived 4 houses down, rang my doorbell one evening. She was trembling, holding a cracked phone in both hands. "I think I saw something," she whispered. "Last week. I didn't know what it was until I heard what happened." She showed me a video she'd recorded through her window. She had been filming a time lapse for her school art project. In the background, barely noticeable at first, was Karen, bent over in our driveway. A faint snip sound, then a glint of metal. She slipped away quickly, casually, like she hadn't just disarmed a disabled child's only safety mechanism. My stomach dropped. This was the missing link. I took the video to the police the next morning. With 2 videos, a technician's signed affidavit, and now a civilian witness, they finally agreed to open a formal case. Karen was served with a restraining order and informed she was under criminal investigation for reckless endangerment and intentional sabotage. Her perfectly combed image began to fray, cracks forming in the porcelain mask she wore so well. But Karen didn't retreat. She retaliated. She hired a high-powered attorney from downtown, a man who specialized in civil integrity cases and had a reputation for flipping public sympathy like a coin. They called a press conference. Yes, a press conference where Karen, in soft pastels and fake tears, claimed that she was being harassed by a grieving mother looking for someone to blame. "I have never hurt a child in my life," she sobbed to cameras. "I only ever tried to help Lily. I pushed her up the hill for a photo. I never touched her brakes. This is character assassination, and I will not be silenced." The smear campaign began. Flyers appeared in mailboxes painting me as unstable. Someone posted anonymously on Nextdoor saying I had mental health issues and that the footage had been doctored. My social media was flooded with fake accounts sending hate messages, accusing me of exploiting my daughter for attention. It was unbearable. But every time I wanted to scream, every time I wanted to crumble, I looked at Lily, her tiny frame hunched during physical therapy, her knuckles clenched on the wheelchair handles, her eyes wide with fear every time she saw a slope. She was scared of hills now. My baby, who used to chase butterflies down ramps and giggle on gentle inclines, now flinched every time she moved downward. Her joy had been stolen, her innocence fractured. So no, I wouldn't break. I began documenting everything publicly. I shared the raw footage, the technician's letter, the damaged photos. I gave interviews. I told our story not to seek sympathy, but to make sure Karen could never lie unchecked again. Soon, the tide began to turn. More neighbors came forward. One woman admitted Karen had warned her not to get too close to us. Another said she'd heard Karen joke about turning that ramp into firewood. A man admitted he once saw Karen pacing our driveway, but didn't say anything because, in his words, "She's the HOA president. I assumed she had a reason." Bit by bit, the illusion of her power shattered. Meanwhile, Lily worked through her recovery with the quiet determination of someone much older than her years. She started physical therapy twice a week. The therapists were gentle, patient, but progress was slow. Fear had made a home in her body. She used to rush into life. Now she hesitated, unsure, second-guessing every slope. One day, while practicing a shallow descent in therapy, she looked up at me and whispered, "What if she does it again?" My heart cracked. "She won't, I promised. Because this time we're not alone. We're going to finish what she started, and we're going to finish it our way." With every signature, every phone call, every new witness, we rebuilt what Karen tried to destroy. Lily's courage, our dignity, and the truth. We weren't just fighting for punishment anymore. We were fighting for healing. And it was time for Karen to face what she'd tried so hard to bury. Accountability. The courtroom was small, unimpressive, nothing like the dramatic scenes you see on television. Beige walls, flickering lights, a clock that ticked too loudly. But inside that room, my entire world waited to be heard. Every breath I took felt like borrowed air. Lily sat beside me, her arms still wrapped in a soft cast, her legs tucked beneath a blanket, and her eyes watching the door where Karen would enter. And then she did. Dressed in her usual pastel perfection, Karen Kessler walked in like she was still hosting a garden club meeting. Her hair was perfectly pinned, her blazer ironed to a crisp, her face painted in faux humility. But her eyes, they weren't soft. They were cold, calculating, still clinging to the illusion of control. She didn't look at us. The prosecution laid out the case with surgical precision. They showed the mechanics report confirming the brakes had been cut, not worn or faulty. They played the doorbell cam video from Mr. Jensen, grainy but unmistakable, showing Karen crouched near our garage, holding clippers. And then came the final piece, Dina's time-lapse video showing Karen's silhouette bent over the wheelchair in the moments before the picnic. You could feel the room shift. Karen's attorney argued it was circumstantial, that maybe she was pruning a bush or retrieving a flyer, that there was no direct footage of her cutting the brake cables. But the judge wasn't blind, and the jury wasn't stupid. Karen, sensing the tide turning, tried her final play, the performance. She took the stand with trembling hands, voice cracking, talking about how she was only trying to include Lily, how she loved children, and how she was deeply hurt by the accusations. She even forced a tear, but no one clapped for her this time. And when I took the stand, when I told the courtroom about my daughter's screams, the blood, the trauma, the months of subtle torment that led up to that moment, I didn't cry. I spoke with the voice of every mother who's ever watched their child suffer and vowed never again. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty. Karen Kessler was found guilty of reckless endangerment, intentional sabotage, and attempted assault on a minor with a disability. The judge sentenced her to community service, fines, and mandated psychological evaluation, not as much as I wanted, but enough to strip away the pedestal she once ruled from. Enough to ensure she could never again serve on any neighborhood board. Enough to remove the mask she wore for far too long. But justice didn't end there. Within a week, the HOA board held an emergency vote and stripped her of her presidency. Her name was removed from every newsletter. The very same people who once nodded silently at her orders now crossed the street when they saw her coming. Her supporters vanished like smoke in the wind. She had gone from the face of the neighborhood to the cautionary tale. But the real moment, the one that mattered more than any sentence, came 3 weeks later. It was a quiet afternoon. The sun was out. The same hill stood across from the park, now gated and marked with a safety sign. Lily wheeled up beside me, looking at it. Her new wheelchair gleamed in the light, stronger, sturdier, and custom-built with a braking system even I didn't fully understand. She sat in silence for a long time. Then she said, "Can we try?" My heart clenched. "Are you sure?" She nodded. I want to show her she didn't win. We went slowly, just a gentle incline, not even halfway down. I walked beside her, hand hovering near the chair. She gripped the wheels, leaned forward slightly, and, with a small push, began to roll. Not fast, not far, but she did it. And when she stopped herself at the bottom, she looked up at me and smiled. Not the same innocent smile as before, but one of quiet power. "I did it," she said. "You did. We didn't need an audience. We didn't need applause. That moment belonged to her, to us. Because in the end, Karen didn't just lose her title or her image. She lost the battle she never truly understood. She tried to break a child to protect a rule book, tried to silence a family in the name of control. But she forgot something. We were not hers to silence. We were not hers to shape. We were not broken. We were brave. Healing doesn't come all at once. Lily still flinches at sudden sounds. She still asks if the doors are locked twice before bed. I still double-check the brakes every morning. But now, when we walk through the neighborhood, people wave. Some even apologize. The same neighbors who once said nothing now say something, and that matters. Because we weren't just their targets, we became their lesson. And no one will ever forget what happened on that hill. No child deserves what my daughter went through. No parent should have to choose between silence and safety. And no community should ever allow power-hungry people to turn kindness into a target. What happened to us wasn't just about one hill, one woman, or one broken brake line. It was about a system that let her believe she could get away with it, that her role in the HOA gave her the right to control, to intimidate, to hurt, all while hiding behind policies, procedures, and polite smiles. But the truth has a way of finding light, and when it does, it exposes everything that hides in the shadows. To those watching this, if you've ever been made to feel small in your own home, if you've ever been bullied under the disguise of rules, or if you've watched someone weaponize authority against the vulnerable, know this: you are not alone. You don't have to stay silent, and your voice matters. Have you seen injustice like this in your neighborhood? Have you witnessed someone misuse power and get away with it? Drop your story in the comments. Let's shine a light on what people try so hard to keep hidden. Brain every like, comment, and share helps these stories be heard. Movie Camera subscribe to our channel, HOA Karen, for more real, raw, and powerful stories of injustice, courage, and unexpected twists that expose the dark side of suburban life. And don't miss our next episode, Backhand Index Pointing Right. HOA Karen called animal control on my son's service dog, then set a trap to get him taken away. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happened next. Because around here, it's never just a neighborhood issue. It's personal.